Let's walk on the wise path.
Have you ever wondered what's really beyond the physical world we live in? What if I told you there's a man who ventured beyond everything we know, beyond time, space, and even his own body, and came back with discoveries that will make you question everything? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? But trust me, this is real. This man not only transcended this reality, but he also uncovered truths that most of us can only dream of. The crazy part? He's one of the few who had the courage to explore beyond the limits of human consciousness and live to tell the tale. Today, I'm going to take you on an incredible journey through the life and discoveries of Robert Monroe, a man who explored the hidden realms of consciousness and came back with mind-boggling revelations. So buckle up, what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. It's hard to imagine that a man who was once completely focused on his family and career would suddenly embark on a journey that would take him far beyond the realm of ordinary human experience. But that's exactly what happened to Robert Monroe in 1958. At 43 years old, Monroe had everything that most people would consider a comfortable and successful life. He was a businessman, a well-respected figure in the radio industry in the United States. He had a family, a job, and a predictable routine that most people would envy. But life has a funny way of throwing unexpected twists into our paths. And for Monroe, one day, it wasn't just a twist, it was a complete disruption of everything he knew. Monroe was lying in bed one evening, preparing to fall asleep after a long day of work. His body had become the victim of an intense vibration that seemed to pulse through him, shaking him from the inside out. At first, he assumed it was something minor, a feeling of discomfort, or perhaps a sensation that would pass with time. But as the vibration continued to intensify, he started to realize this was no ordinary sensation. It was as though his entire body was vibrating at a frequency that was completely unfamiliar to him. What's more, the sensation wasn't just confined to his physical body. It was something deeper, something that seemed to be coming from the very essence of his being. Imagine for a moment the feeling of your body buzzing uncontrollably, but without any physical shaking or tremors. That's exactly what Monroe experienced, and at that moment, he couldn't explain it. The first time Monroe felt this intense vibration, he tried to shake it off. He couldn't understand it, and his logical mind couldn't reconcile it with his daily life. But then something far stranger happened. As he lay in bed, waiting for the sensation to subside, he suddenly felt an unexpected force. Something was bumping against his shoulder, but when he looked around, he saw that no one was there. That's when it dawned on him he wasn't in his bed anymore. He was floating outside of it. This wasn't just an odd dream or a figment of his imagination. Monroe found himself observing his own body, lying motionless in bed, while he was hovering above it, as if watching himself from a completely different dimension. And the most shocking realization came when he looked down at his wife, who was lying beside his body, only to discover that the person in the bed next to her was him. What kind of experience was this? Was it a dream? A hallucination? Or had Monroe unknowingly crossed into a completely different reality? At that moment, Monroe had no answers. But what he did know was that he had just taken the first step into a journey that would change his life forever. He had experienced something so far beyond his normal understanding of reality that there was no turning back. The awakening and the fear. Imagine being in Robert Monroe's shoes during that night. He had just experienced an event that defied all logic and reason, and as the initial shock wore off, confusion set in. The human mind has a tendency to doubt the impossible, and so Monroe found himself questioning what had just happened. Could it be that he was just dreaming? Or was it possible that he was experiencing something much deeper, something his rational mind couldn't yet comprehend? The problem with these kinds of experiences is that they don't offer easy answers. And that's exactly what Monroe found. In the days that followed that strange night, he began to notice similar sensations. The vibrations kept happening, each time with a little more intensity. It wasn't just a one-off incident, as he had hoped. The vibrations began to feel like an invitation an invitation to something more, something that would push him beyond the boundaries of his physical existence. Monroe, being a logical man, initially thought that perhaps he was losing his mind. Could it be a mental breakdown? A neurological condition? He sought help from doctors and psychologists, hoping for an explanation that would ground him back into reality. But to his surprise, the professionals found nothing wrong with him. His physical health was in perfect condition. There was no apparent cause for what he was experiencing. And so, he was left with one conclusion. Whatever was happening to him was real, and it wasn't something that could be easily explained away. At first, the fear was overwhelming. The idea that his body could leave the physical plane and exist outside of it was terrifying. What did it mean? Was he experiencing death? Was he trapped in some kind of altered state of consciousness? These were questions that Monroe couldn't answer, and they only added to the anxiety he was feeling. But as the experiences continued, something changed. Monroe could no longer ignore what was happening. Curiosity replaced fear. He began to embrace the idea that there was something larger than the physical world, something beyond his senses, waiting to be explored. The more he allowed himself to be carried away by these sensations, the more he realized that what he was experiencing wasn't just random. It was a gateway, a portal to a reality that was far beyond anything he had ever known. The first time he allowed himself to float outside his body completely, he crossed into a new dimension. It was as if he had transcended everything that defined him. Fear gripped him once again as he floated above his own body, wondering if this was the end. But then, something extraordinary happened. Instead of being pulled into the void, he was gently returned to his physical form. The vibrations ceased, and he was back to the world he knew. At that moment, Monroe realized that these experiences were not a fluke. They were something deeper, something that demanded attention. He wasn't going mad. He was tapping into something far more profound, and it was only just beginning. The turning point out of body experiences. Robert Monroe didn't just stop at feeling strange vibrations or observing his own body from a distance. He dove headfirst into this uncharted territory, determined to understand what was happening to him. And through his persistence, he discovered that he wasn't just experiencing a form of consciousness beyond the physical body. He was experiencing out-of-body experiences. Obese, a phenomenon that has fascinated humanity for centuries. For Monroe, the obese weren't something he could control at first. They were spontaneous, unpredictable, and frightening. But he was determined to make sense of them. Over time, he learned to master the art of separating his consciousness from his physical body. It wasn't an easy process. At times, he felt like he was teetering on the edge of a great abyss, unsure of what lay on the other side. But the more he explored, the more he realized that he had tapped into something that no one had fully understood before. During one of his obese, Monroe found himself floating above his body once again. But this time, he wasn't terrified. Instead, he was filled with awe. He was no longer just an observer. He was an active participant in something much greater than himself. And as he ventured further into this otherworldly space, he discovered that what he was experiencing wasn't just a random event. It was a journey through different levels of consciousness that expanded his understanding of reality itself. One of the most profound aspects of Monroe's obese was his discovery that consciousness wasn't confined to the physical body. His second body, as he called it, was able to move freely through dimensions and spaces that were completely outside the laws of physics. Time as we know it didn't exist in these realms. The past, present, and future all merged into one, forming an eternal now. Monroe also discovered that in these non-physical realms, thought was not just a mental process. It was the very force that shaped reality. In the physical world, we're used to thinking of our thoughts as abstract things that don't have a direct effect on the world around us. But in these realms, thoughts became a powerful force, capable of creating energy and matter. Reality itself was malleable, and it was shaped by the very consciousness of the beings who inhabited these spaces. This discovery was nothing short of revolutionary. Monroe's understanding of reality was now vastly different from what it had been before. He wasn't just living in a physical world. He was part of a much larger, more intricate network of consciousness that extended beyond time, space, and the material universe. Discovering the hidden dimensions. As Monroe continued his journey through the realms of consciousness, he began to categorize the different levels of existence he encountered. He described them as scenarios, dimensions of consciousness that had different laws and rules than the physical world we live in. The first scenario was the physical world, the one we all know and experience every day. But the second and third scenarios were entirely different. The second scenario, Monroe discovered, was a non-physical realm where the laws of movement and matter barely resembled those of the physical world. It was a vast, endless expanse that seemed to stretch beyond what the human mind could comprehend. This realm wasn't limited by time or space, as we understand them. Instead, time was fluid. It didn't follow the linear structure we're used to. In this space, past, present, and future were all happening simultaneously, forming an eternal now. One of the most profound discoveries Monroe made in this realm was the power of thought. In the second scenario, thoughts weren't just fleeting mental events. They were the fundamental force that created everything. Thought could shape matter, create energy, and form the very fabric of reality itself. In this realm, you were what you thought. Whatever you imagined became your reality. It was a place where the boundaries between mind and matter blurred, and where the power of consciousness took center stage. In this dimension, Monroe observed that beings that inhabited this realm were also shaped by their thoughts and emotions. The people he encountered were often caught in emotional loops, trapped by unresolved fears, desires, and attachments. These beings weren't necessarily evil, but they were lost in a maze of their own emotional creations. Monroe realized that mastering emotions was key to progressing in this realm. Those who couldn't let go of their emotional baggage remained stuck, unable to move forward. But for those who learned to control their emotions, the second scenario held limitless potential. Monroe came to understand that life in the physical world was an opportunity to learn to navigate these emotional realms, to break free from the limitations of the human experience, and to transcend the cycles of rebirth. The power of thought and emotion. The discovery that thought and emotion were the fundamental building blocks of reality was one of the most profound revelations in Monroe's exploration of consciousness. It wasn't just about escaping the physical body or traveling to different realms. It was about understanding how the mind and emotions shaped the very fabric of existence. In the second scenario, Monroe realized that emotions weren't just passive feelings, they were powerful forces that could create entire realities. The emotional energy generated by beings was capable of influencing everything in the non-physical realms. This understanding led Monroe to a startling conclusion. Our emotional experiences, whether joy, love, fear, or pain, were not only affecting our immediate environment, but were shaping the very dimensions in which we existed. This discovery completely changed Monroe's perspective on life. He understood that the emotional baggage we carry through our physical lives has a profound impact on our spiritual existence. The emotions we repress, the fears we refuse to confront, and the desires we cling to, these all shape the realities we experience. And just as easily as we create our own personal realities through our emotions, we also have the power to transcend them, but only if we learn to master our emotions and thoughts. For Monroe, this journey was not just about exploring new dimensions, it was about self-mastery. It was about confronting the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves, the parts that we often hide from the world. And through this process of emotional self-discovery, Monroe came to understand that the key to transcending this reality was to elevate our vibration, to increase our level of consciousness, and to break free from the emotional ties that bound us to the physical plane. The role of energy and consciousness. One of Robert Monroe's most impactful discoveries during his exploration of out-of-body experiences was the concept of escape velocity, the energy required to break free from the cycle of physical existence and transcend into higher realms of consciousness. Monroe likened it to a rocket needing a certain speed to break free from Earth's gravity. In the same way, the human consciousness must reach a certain level of energy or vibration to break free from the limitations of the physical world. The idea of escape velocity challenged everything we know about human existence. Monroe suggested that life in the physical world wasn't just about living out a short, finite existence and then fading into nothing. No, he argued that the purpose of life was to learn, grow, and evolve through experiences, gaining a deeper understanding of energy, consciousness, and existence itself. But as humans, we often become so attached to our material existence, our emotions, desires, and fears, that we get stuck in a cycle of rebirths. This attachment holds us back, preventing us from moving beyond the physical plane. The key to breaking this cycle, Monroe realized, was to elevate our level of consciousness. This meant increasing our vibration by letting go of emotional attachments and learning to control the energy that flows through us. In other words, we must learn to manipulate our energy in ways that transcend the physical body and connect us to the greater universal consciousness. This wasn't just some lofty spiritual ideal. Monroe believed that our physical actions, our thoughts, feelings, and even the way we move through the world affect the energy around us in ways we can't always see. By understanding how our actions impact the energy of our reality, we can begin to master our existence, not only in the physical world, but in all realms of consciousness. Monroe's research suggested that the universe is interconnected by energy and consciousness, and that humans possess the power to influence that energy. This was groundbreaking. It wasn't just about escaping the body and visiting alternate realities. It was about realizing that our human experience has the potential to influence the very fabric of existence itself. Life, in its deepest form, is a game of energy and consciousness, and those who can master it can break free from the limitations of their reality, expanding their awareness and exploring new realms of being. By understanding and manipulating our own energy, we can transcend the physical boundaries we're so accustomed to and enter a new realm of existence where our consciousness is free to roam, evolve, and explore the mysteries of the universe. Robert Monroe passed away in 1995, but his work continues to inspire millions of people worldwide. Through his groundbreaking research into out-of-body experiences and the exploration of non-ordinary states of consciousness, he opened a door to a reality that most of us can't even begin to comprehend. But Monroe believed that we all have the potential to transcend this reality, to explore the mysteries of consciousness and unlock the infinite possibilities that lie beyond. So, what does this mean for you? The next time you feel stuck, trapped in the limitations of your physical existence, remember Robert Monroe. Remember that there's a whole world of possibilities waiting for you, if only you have the courage to look beyond the veil. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep exploring the unknown.